Welcome to EVTN News, and prepare to be disappointed by the Fatima consecration. More on that after these other news stories. We're going to start with Dr. Peter Koznevsky. He wrote a new book entitled True Obedience in the Church, published by Sophia Press, and he talks about the limits of obedience to church authorities and makes it clear that the church has no right to cancel the traditional Catholic Mass and its associated liturgical books. The church authorities may not suspend or punish a priest simply for adhering to the traditional Mass. The liturgy scholar and philosopher goes so far as to say that such penalties would be null and void, and therefore such priests may continue administering the sacraments as before. For Dr. K, it is clear that the attitude as expressed in Traditionis Custodes is a profoundly un-Catholic, indeed anti-Catholic point of view. Since this attack on the traditional rite goes against the common good of the Church, it should not be obeyed. Here Dr. K quotes the SSPX, who reiterates that the traditional Mass belongs to the most intimate part of the common good in the Church. To restrict it, continues the statement, can have no legitimacy. Have you heard that before? On this channel, maybe? I think Ryan, the retrograde, has been saying this for years. I think so. So please continue to watch the channel. Thank you. There is a pre-conclave memo circulating amongst cardinals. This article, the rumor, whatever you want to call it, was published by Sandro Magister, journalist. Interesting clips. You can read the full memo at the link in the description. It says, Magister says, since the beginning of Lent, the cardinals who will elect the future pope have been passing this memorandum around. Its author, who goes by the name of Demos, which means people in Greek, is unknown, but shows himself a thorough master of the subject. It cannot be ruled out that he himself is a cardinal. So it's speculating that he's a cardinal. That's, certainly not a guarantee, but okay. So here's a quote. He says, commentators of every school, if for different reasons, with the possible exception of Father Spadaro S.J., agree that this pontificate is a disaster in many or most respects, a catastrophe. The Next Conclave. There's a section called the Next Conclave, point 1. The College of Cardinals has been weakened by eccentric nominations and has not been reconvened after the rejection of Cardinal Casper's views in the 2014 consistory. Many cardinals are unknown to one another, adding a new dimension of unpredictability to the next conclave. So and I think many of us are already looking forward to who's going to be the next pope. Can it be worse? Yeah, but can it be better? Absolutely. Even with this group of cardinals, I mean, certainly there's some that are radical LMNOP, but there's a lot of unpredictable cardinals. That's what it says here. Point 6 says, while the younger clergy and seminarians are almost completely orthodox, sometimes quite conservative, the new pope will need to be aware of the substantial changes effected on the church's leadership since 2013, perhaps especially in South and Central America. There is a new spring in the step of the Protestant liberals in the Catholic Church. So this person calls the liberals Protestants, which is, I think that's a kind word for them, because I think they're more like the Unitarians who believe that all religions lead to God, because I think calling the liberals Protestants is actually an insult to Protestants who believe in the Bible. I mean, they believe in the heretical Bible, but they believe in many of the ideas, many of the principles that Jesus taught, as opposed to liberals who don't. Last point here, schism is not likely to occur from the left, who often sit lightly to doctrinal issues. Schism is more likely to come from the right, and is always possible when liturgical tensions are inflamed and not dampened. That's an interesting point. Yeah, you can go into schism in any direction, but what about schism from the highest office, the papacy? Who knows? Speaking of schism, the Diocese of Essen in Germany is the first diocese in that country to commission a group of women to administer the sacrament of baptism. So, as you know, any layperson can baptize a baby, but we'll see just in a second here. 17 women will administer baptisms under Bishop Franz Joseph Overbeck. I've talked about him before. He's definitely a German synodal path, German synodal way bishop. So Teresa Kohlmeier, head of the Department of Faith, Liturgy, and Culture in the diocese, said that the step was necessary because there were fewer priests than in the past. So a priest can't find, 15, 20 minutes to baptize a baby? Really? Canon 861 of the Code of Canon Law says that the ordinary minister of baptism is a bishop, a presbyter, or a deacon. It adds that when an ordinary minister is absent or impeded, a catechist or another person designated for this function by the local ordinary, or in a case of necessity, any person with the right intention confers baptism licitly. Any person with the right intention. See, these are bishops who would tell you not to get your baby baptized during Lent, right? Do these bishops actually believe in the Catholic faith? Do they believe that baptism is necessary for salvation? This bishop in particular, does he believe that? I don't know. I can't answer that question for him. However, it doesn't appear that there is an emergency. And also, Germany itself, how many dioceses does the country of Germany have? How long do you have to drive to find a church? And are there really so few priests that they can't perform baptisms? And how many people are even going to the church asking for baptism? I think these are all questions that obviously the answers, there are very few lay people going to the church asking for a baptism. So this is really just an attempt to make these women deacons, give them roles of deacons. And so later on, maybe just even a few years down the road, you can say, hey, these women are already, doing, performing the roles of deacons. And so why can't we have women deacons? There are women already doing this. So I'd rather, I'd rather not have any of these women administer baptisms. They could train nurses in hospitals to do emergency baptisms, but do they really believe that baptism is necessary for salvation? I don't know. I'm going to say, based on this, 17 women to administer baptisms, they probably don't believe. All right, getting to the Russia consecration. Pope Francis, on Friday, March 25th, during the celebration of penance at which he will preside at 5 p.m. in St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Francis will consecrate Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Breaking news just in. Pope Francis changes the Fatima consecration plans. Following the prayer at the Angelus in St. Peter's Square this past Sunday, Francis said to the crowd, I invite every community and all the faithful to unite with me on Friday, March 25th, the Solemnity of the Annunciation, to the solemn act of consecration of humanity, especially Russia and Ukraine, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, so that she, the Queen of Peace, may help us obtain peace. According to the German news outlet, Catholiches.info, Vatican officials have pressed Pope Francis to tone down the Eurocentric emphasis of the consecration. So we're going to get a repeat of what happened with Pope John Paul II in the 80s. It seems like initially I was optimistic about this, and I didn't post any videos about it. I wanted to see what happened. But I thought, you know what? Pope Francis could do something good. And now we see that, no, that's too Catholic. Can't do that. We have to tone it down a little bit. any of this stuff, like the people that believe in the apparitions at Fatima, they're most of them are rigid. Some of them are traditionalists. Um, I don't know. Yes, Arturo Rico asked about the SSPX bishops. That's another thing. I think the SSPX released a statement that they're encouraged by this, but I didn't see anything about the SSPX bishops participating in this. Here's another wrench in the works. Pope Benedict XVI. He's going to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart. We have two popes. What if one does it correctly? Is he going to unite with all the bishops of the world? Because it seems like in a letter sent urgently on March 17th to all U.S. bishops, the Apostolic Nuncio to the United States, Archbishop Christophe Pierre, revealed that Pope Francis intends to invite all Catholic bishops and priests around the world to join the act of consecration in Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So if Francis doesn't do the consecration right, but if Pope Benedict does, and all the bishops do, because it seems like this isn't just the United States bishops, there are plenty of bishops around the world who are committed to consecrating Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. If they do that correctly, is that good enough? In union with Pope Benedict? I mean, there's so much gray area here. We'll see what happens. And I said I wanted to wait and see what actually did happen, to wait and see if Pope Francis would back down, and it appears that he is. Thanks to the Germans, maybe. I mean, he has good friends with Cardinal Marx, and you can't have that Catholicism. You really can't have the Catholic faith. So, are we going to be waiting again? And every pope is just going to be like, yes, I'm doing the consecration as Our Lady of Fatima intended. And then, I don't know about that. So, we will see. We'll definitely see. But Pope Benedict said he's doing that. So what would happen if the consecration was done right? I mean, would it end communism around the world? Then pretty much every leader in every global leader would somehow resign their position, or, I mean, because communism has overtaken our entire world. No question. Look at the last 2 years. Which country is not communist? But would it happen? Would Francis do something so radical that there was no question that he was in schism with the Catholic Church? Would an asteroid hit Rome? I think Joe Biden's supposed to be in Poland the day the consecration is going to happen. Would there be two asteroids that kind of diverge and hit different places and destroy not just Rome, not Rome at all, just the Vatican? A small asteroid just hit the Vatican and take out all the bad guys, and then we would have all these cardinals on the peripheries to vote for a new pope who would Pope Pius the 13th, Pope Athanasius. I don't know. A lot of questions, but right now, based on what Pope Francis said here, I'm not optimistic. But we can always beg for mercy. We can beg for God's mercy that this consecration will be done 100 years late. It will be done correctly, and we will have a period of peace. Russia's errors will be, I don't know, destroyed or whatever. And, I've been listening to Father Gregory Hesse, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but he's convinced the third secret of Fatima has to do with a false council, or at least the Second Vatican Council, whatever you want to call it. He said that he's convinced the third secret has to do with the Second Vatican Council. And what does it say? Is it in favor or opposed? Why don't they release the full secret? And why was this consecration not done? That's all I'll have to say on that. I'll check back with you next week. Check back in the EVTN news next week, see what happens. And for my reaction, I might not have much of a reaction. It might be still a wait and see type of thing. But as of right now, my optimism has decreased significantly after I read this article. Moving to Cardinal Pell. In a statement released March 15th, Cardinal Pell asked the Vatican's doctrinal congregation to intervene and pronounce judgment on comments made by Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, the LMNOP Cardinal, and the Relator General of the Vatican Synod on Synodality, and Bishop Georg Batzing, President of the German Bishops' Conference. So that's good that here's a cardinal who's speaking out against clear heresy. I mean, these LMNOP cardinals, they endorse LMNOP activity, which directly opposes St. Paul. And Cardinal Pell's not having anything to do with it. Now, Cardinal Pell, he asked the Vatican's doctrinal congregation to intervene. What are the chances of that happening? Not much. So, I don't know. I mean, here's another example of cardinals, but they are opposing the German bishops, and which I don't know. Are the German bishops people that Francis supports? He certainly hasn't said anything against them recently. So we're seeing the sides stack up. But if you're looking at Our Lady of Akita's prophecy, cardinal against cardinal, bishop against bishop, there we go. Cardinal Pell is against Cardinal Hollerich, and we're lining up. We're seeing who the guys are that actually support the Catholic faith, that aren't hostile towards the Catholic faith. And Cardinal Pell seems to be one of the guys that's lining up on the good side of things. So hopefully he will speak out as inaction on the Vatican's part continues towards these people that are explicitly preaching heresy. More on the German bishops. The bishops and Protestants in Lower Saxony and Bremen in Germany published an ecumenical declaration on assisted suicide on March 16th, signed by Bishop Bode of Osnabrück, and Bishop Wilmer of Hildesheim, and Bishop Theising of Munster. He's an auxiliary bishop. They justify assisted suicide in individual cases, which leads to believe that they support it. They say whether in borderline and emergency situations, an assisted suicide can be tolerated in church houses, cannot be answered in a general way. So they're basically ambiguity. They're basically stating ambiguity on the topic, which leads to mean that they, in some cases, support it. So there you go, more German bishops. Now this is turn into a good news story here. Archbishop John Wilson of Southwark, England, reportedly supported a decision to cancel a book signing event with the LMNOP author Simon James Green at John Fisher School in Purley, South London, on March 7th. So this is good. Finally, bishops standing up for the Catholic faith in some cases. That's good. I mean, and especially, this isn't a popular decision by a bishop. Usually they get strongly criticized. But here's a bishop that is doing what he's supposed to do. And for that, we should at least be thankful that there are some bishops standing up for the Catholic faith. Now, is he standing up for the traditional Mass? I don't know. Hopefully. The Vatican-China deal is set for renewal. Bishop Stephen Chow of Hong Kong met with Pope Francis on Thursday as the Vatican gears up for a renewal of its controversial pastoral agreement with the People's Republic of China. While the Vatican has not commented on the reason for the meeting, sources close to the diocesan chancery in Hong Kong told the pillar that the bishop has also met with Cardinal Parolin, the Secretary of State. And this is going to tie into the new Vatican Constitution. Not directly, but hold that thought. A key change is the elevation, in the Vatican's new constitution, is the elevation of the role of the laity in the governance of the Vatican Curia, and by extension in the wider church. The Pope, the bishops, and other ordained ministers are not only evangelizers in the church, reads the text, therefore the laity, male or female, must have roles of government and responsibility. All right, so we hear about this all the time, we need more women in leadership roles in the church, and this is definitely what they're intending to do. So this new Vatican Constitution is called Predicte Evangelium. It thus decrees that any member of the faithful can preside over a dicastery or an organism, given the particular competence, power of governance, and function of the latter. So women can lead Vatican dicasteries, paving the way for the leftist heretics to, I guess, call for lay female cardinals. Female cardinals, lay cardinals, whatever. That's what it's coming to. But they'll also have leadership roles. Do you think... So okay, the church is already effeminate. Not the church, but many of the people in the church hierarchy are already effeminate. And so you're going to put women over these roles. A lot of men are already repulsed by the Novus Ordo culture, and you're going to put women in charge of more of this stuff. Sounds like a great idea. The dicastery, section 1. All right. The dicastery provides for everything pertaining to the appointment of diocesan and titular bishops, apostolic administrators, and in general to the provision of particular churches. He does so taking into consideration the proposals of particular churches of the episcopal conferences and of the pontifical representations after having consulted with the members of the presidency of the respective episcopal conference and the metropolitan. Okay, so this is in regards to the appointment of bishops. This last sentence is really important. In this process, he also involves members of the people of God from the dioceses concerned in appropriate ways. So that means lay people may have an input on the selection of bishops. And it says he also involves members of the people of God. Who are the people of God? Is it Catholics in the diocese? Is it non-Catholics in the diocese? Because if it's non-Catholics in the diocese, let's just let President Xi in China appoint every bishop. Oh, wait. This new Vatican Constitution, depending on how you interpret it, allows for a deal like the Vatican Chinese deal to exist. It allows governments to appoint bishops. And if it's a Catholic monarchy, that's one thing. But if it's a communist dictator... In section 2, the dicastery, in agreement with the bishops' conferences and their regional and continental unions, indicates the criteria for choosing candidates. These criteria must take into account the different cultural needs and be periodically evaluated. This is really Vatican II language. Take into account the different cultural needs. Is it a cultural need for President Xi to appoint bishops? Is it a cultural need to appoint Chinese patriotic bishops? To me, it really stuck out. Yeah, and it depends how you interpret the phrase people of God. Seems like the new law permits the Chinese government to select their own bishops. A particular development of this new constitution, a peculiar development of this new constitution is the resurgence of the term extraordinary form. Well, we'll get to that here in a second. in Article 93 to designate the traditional Latin Mass displayed Pope Francis' motu proprio, stating the Novus Ordo is the unique expression of the lex orandi of the Roman Rite. The new constitution took Vatican journalists by surprise given its unannounced arrival, and we got a correction on the extraordinary form. So you know how that term was abolished, and it was, okay, so the Latin Mass is really just this old outdated liturgy, and it was abrogated. So one pope says one thing, another pope says another thing, and then it's just going to be a tug of war back and forth, or a tennis ball, whatever you choose. I played tennis a few times. It was kind of fun, but I couldn't hit it backhand, and so I was actually bad, and I couldn't really serve either. And with more practice, I could have gotten better, but who knows. Anyway, put spin on the tennis ball, and there you go. You got the Vatican's style here. Put spin on everything, and it depends how you interpret it. Kind of like Vatican II, right? Bishop Marco Molino, Secretary of the Council of Cardinals, admitted at a March 21st press conference presenting Predicte Evangelium that using the phrase extraordinary form for the Latin Mass is a mistake. So the editors didn't catch it. Explaining what everybody knows, Molino said that the Constitution was prepared for nearly a decade and had been written before Francis issued Traditionis Custodes, crushing the term extraordinary form. Francis has asked for this to be corrected in the Editio Typica of PE, the new Constitution, to be published in the coming days. Molino added that the redrafted section will also include the concession given by Francis to the FSSP, allowing them to continue to use the Latin Rite. So this confirms that Pope Francis did give the FSSP permission to continue to say the Latin Mass. So they're good for now. They'll be good for probably a little while. Of course, the whole situation is very strange, and obviously they didn't proofread it. So, and Gloria TV pointed this out, such mistakes show the extent of the bungling in Francis's Vatican and proves that Francis himself has not read the final version of what is presented as the Vatican's constitution. He probably also didn't read Traditionis Custodes, because otherwise he wouldn't have given the FSSP permission to continue to say the Latin Mass. So it really is just a tug of war, a very strange situation where the Latin Mass is in, but just know that there are definitely going to be plenty of priests who preserve the old Mass, and you need to find those priests and stick around with them, stick up for them. And finally, going to the Syro-Malabar Rite, this is a really interesting situation to me, I think. It's one of the Eastern rites, particularly in India. The Syro-Malabar faithful, well, I wouldn't call them faithful. In Ernakulam, India, evidently instigated by priests connected to journalists, burned on March 17th dummies of two cardinals over a liturgy dispute, AsiaNews.Italy reports. The dummies represented the Syro-Malabar Cardinal Alan Cherry and the prefect of the Eastern Churches, Cardinal Sandry. The protesters opposed the requirements of their rite to celebrate the liturgy facing God. This is basically ad orientem worship that was required recently in the Syro-Malabar Rite. The liturgical abuse of turning away from God started 50 years ago. So during the destruction of the liturgy during Vatican II, the destruction of the Roman Rite liturgy, the Syro-Malabar Rite also, for whatever reason, allowed liturgical abuse to creep into their rite. And now these protesters are burning, they're burning dummies of these cardinals, which is crazy. And it goes to show the demonic element in play uh, for everyone who hates reverent liturgy. I mean, if you hate reverent liturgy, there's got to be something messed up. I don't know. I just think there's something wrong. If you're so repulsed by the reverent liturgy that you have to angrily post against it or burn dummies of cardinals, like it's ridiculous. It's demonic. So the Syro-Malabar Rite is definitely one to watch. I'm glad that they decided to make things more reverent. I think they will see a benefit to it in the future. Maybe not right away, but even ad orientem novus ordos, at least, you know, that's sort of trying to make the novus ordo reverent, and I do respect that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this. The Fatima consecration, it does have me pretty disappointed. I mean, how can it not? Okay, let me get to the comments. Thank you everyone for tuning into the live chat. Living Purgatory. I heard a prophecy a while back that Benedict the 16th would be the one who consecrated Russia. I wonder how that could happen. I wonder. Yeah, just pray for God's mercy for this upcoming consecration, that it will fulfill the request of Our Lady of Fatima. And I know there are plenty of lay people, plenty of priests, and even plenty of bishops who support this consecration, and especially in the situation that's going on in our world, we could especially have used this consecration a long time ago, but now is a great time to fulfill Our Lady's request. And so certainly pray for God's mercy. All right, thank you very much for watching. This has been EVTN News. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.